Today's guest is a New England native that began his high-level career at Oakwood Academy. He committed 4 years to Providence College, an NCAA Division I program, and during his time with the Friars, he tallied 13 goals and 6 assists while making 80 appearances. He's gathered personal accolades like USC Division I All-Great Lakes Region Third Team, Big East All-Freshman Team in 2016, and All-Big East Third Team in 2019. In his senior season, he captained the Friars to the third round of the NCAA tournament. In 2020, the Columbus Crew selected him as the 49th overall pick in the MLS Super Draft. His first professional contract came with the USL side Pittsburgh Riverhounds, where he's currently in his third season. Ladies and gentlemen, Danny Griffin. And we're live.
And we're back. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the newest episode of the Howlers Podcast Spotlight. This is a good one. It was tough to top Blake Mullen, but don't tell him, but I think we just might have. Danny Griffin joins us. Welcome, Danny.
Welcome, Danny.
Thank you guys for having me.
Of course.
Happy to. Danny, we usually start by cracking a beer. We've heard, because you're in season, out of solidarity, tonight we're going to also pretend we play for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, and we are having a dry season right now, so no beer for us on our end, which is kind of a crazy thing, but you're welcome.
All for you, man. All for you. To kick things off, first question here: what drew you to, I guess, soccer? What was the driving factor? What in your beginnings kind of solidified that as your sport?
Yeah, I was born in Springfield, Mass. So I started soccer at an early age. I think around 4 is when I started. I played all sports growing up. My dad was a big wrestler, track, football. But yeah, him and my mom took me to all my trainings, and just soccer's what stuck with me. Like ever since I was a kid, that was always my favorite. And then also I always was on like 5 or 6 different soccer teams, especially when I moved to Connecticut, and that's like when I first started playing for my club Oakwood. And yeah, my love for the game grew then.
And was there any other sports that you played growing up, or was it mostly like, all right, soccer's like the one sport that I guess I'm committed to?
I also played baseball and basketball, and baseball is probably my second favorite sport. But once like it came to an age, like I played baseball up until the end of middle school, and then once it came, from there that's when I picked that soccer as the sport, because I always would miss baseball games for like soccer practice or soccer games. So soccer was always my favorite, but I did enjoy baseball. But once it came to high school is when I chose one sport.
Yeah, no, that's a good segue, because I'm curious to know what sacrifices you kind of had to make, I guess, throughout high school and in your personal life, and I guess other areas of the game itself. Because I know with academy you can't play at the high school level, correct?
Yeah, so my freshman, like going into my freshman year of high school, is actually when they made that rule, because I knew before that there was another family that I was close with in my town that also played for my academy and for the high school that I went to, and was able to do both. He would just play the high school season in the fall and then go to the academy in the spring. But yeah, they just made that rule my freshman year.
Man, I didn't know that's gut wrenching.
Yeah, like
you don't
right
have to
there,
play with
man.
all your buddies.
Yeah, I mean, obviously playing with all my buddies growing up, like I still went to all the games and stuff, and they understood too. You know, obviously, families and parents wanted me to be able to play. Our town is a big soccer town, so I think we have one of the most state championships in our town. And I know even my senior year, all my buddies, they made it to the state final, so I was proud and happy for them, and they were happy for me because they knew that was the best situation for me to get looked at with the national team and colleges scouting me all the time. So it was a good situation, and glad that, you know, the guys that I grew up with still had a successful time in high school.
Was it more so in terms of the other sports you played, just because I'm curious? Obviously, from pretty early on, you knew you'd have to give most of your time to soccer. Is there anything in specific you miss about playing baseball, or was it more so like anything else? Is it more so the camaraderie of the guys you played with, or is it like, did you love sliding into second and taking out the shortstop, or striking somebody out, or throwing somebody out? Was there anything in particular that you really liked about any other sport that you played that you do miss today?
For baseball, it was definitely, I either played shortstop or center field. So like I would always have the ball hit to me. Like that was the best for me. So probably like throwing a guy out from center field that was trying to run home from second was probably like memorable from baseball.
That's awesome. Being an all-around athlete, from what it sounds, do you think that offered you advantages moving into a strictly like focused football career or soccer career? Like, did you take attributes from playing those other sports that kind of carried over, or did you kind of hone your athletic craft within the game of soccer just as you matured?
I think playing like all sports definitely helps because different sports work different types of muscles, and there's different attributes to different games that you can take into soccer. But then obviously soccer was always my priority. So even though like I was playing baseball, basketball, like whenever I was home after school, like I lived across the street from the high school soccer field, I was just playing soccer all day until I actually had practice with the academy at night, and then would come back home and just work on fitness or other things that I could be doing with the ball. So I just spent most of my time with the soccer ball, and then if I had practices for other sports, just went with that, and it was extra fitness.
Awesome. No, makes sense. Convenient having the field that close. It could be a factor in itself. But throughout your soccer journey, were there specific individuals that you would accredit some of your success to, or that really guided you on the path to where you are now?
Definitely. I definitely credit my parents. They made a lot of sacrifices for me to be able to play, and they did everything they could to have me involved in the sport. Like, I know playing academy isn't cheap. Like, it's expensive to play academy here in the States. So just everything that they did for me. I know I credit my dad a lot because he would, like, at a very young age, like I told you guys, I was on probably 4 or 5 soccer teams in Connecticut. Like, I did the ODP, I did Oakwood, I played for my town team, I played for Hartford. And yeah, he would come, we'd have a game at probably 8 a.m. at Oakwood, but he always taught me to be an hour early, and there was always a game an hour early, and sometimes they needed players. So I'd play in the 7 o'clock game, I'd play in the 8 o'clock game, and then I'd always ask him if I could stay for the next game. So some days I'd play from 7 a.m. till like probably noon or 1 o'clock, played in like 5 different games. I'd always ask like the older groups, can I play? And he would sit there in the stands and watch me play. And, he always wanted me to be able to push myself, and he always pushed me. So there are times where I'd go and do fitness at the track at night, and he would drive his truck like right along the track and just turn on the lights for me and be there and watch me and time me while I did my sprint. So definitely a credit to him and my mother. And then my academy coaches at Oakwood, they did everything to help me in my situation to go to college. And Oakwood was basically a second home for me when I was in Connecticut, because pretty much most of my hours, if I wasn't training at the field across the street from my house, I was at Oakwood training, doing extra work. And the coaches set it up where they really took care of me and were doing extra work and provided me all I needed to continue getting better and further my growth in the game. And then, of course, my college coaches at Providence, they had a big impact in helping me make that next jump, and then getting drafted, and obviously coming here to Pittsburgh. And the coach I've had here in Pittsburgh is the best coach I've had. He's always pushed me to improve my game. So
I guess for people who, well, a terrifying thought, we might have kids someday, guys. When we do, I'm sure you'll get them signed up for soccer. But Danny, what was, when you were like peak busy, you talk about your Oakwood days, you're playing a few games a weekend, trainings most days. What does a week look like for you? Like, are you literally doing something soccer related at least once a day? Are there after school trainings? And then I know you mentioned weekends. What did that look like for you when it was like peak hectic?
So like in terms of those days, like in high school, I remember, like, even in school, like, I would always just be thinking about soccer. Like, it was hard. Like, I'd be watching film. like, even my good friends, they knew, like, if I didn't win the game on the weekend, like, I'd be, like, pretty much, like, frustrated that week. Like, not mad, but, like, they'd see my attitude, like, during class. Like, I would just always be looking at our film, like, watching videos of, like, Neymar is one of my favorite players, so I'd always be watching films on him. And then as soon as we got out of school, like, I would go to the field and work out probably 2-3 hours. Sometimes guys on the soccer team there in my town, like my neighbor was a good player for the high school, so he'd come train and we'd do one-on-ones for like an hour or 2 hours until we retired. And then I would go train at Oakwood, and then after that I'd probably come home and lift with one of my buddies that's on the football team, or Mario that was on the basketball team. Like we'd go there. So I'd pretty much be working all day, and even still then, like, would be just watching film or watching soccer games, like stuff that I could do to just learn more about the game and players in my position.
Oh, that's a lot of work you put in. Jeez. You mentioned Oakwood, and this is a question just because I'm obviously local to Connecticut too. What is your opinion of those boarded fields? They obviously have the turf complex now and everything, but I would imagine you played a lot of matches on those indoor, just corralled fields. Ball never goes out of play unless you kind of like a hockey rink. What is your opinion of playing on those boards? Did you like it?
I liked it because it was different. Like obviously, like when you play outside, you don't have the boards or anything, so there's stoppage. Like when you play indoor, it's actually really good fitness. Like even now when I go back home, like I'll go train with the academy teams when I'm home during the off season, and it is really good fitness because the ball like hardly ever goes out unless obviously it hits the net or anything. But it is very different to the game because sometimes you see guys that are just fast, like trying to pass off the boards and stuff. And there's definitely different tactics to it because it's 5v5. So it's a lot more back and forth than like you'd see in a full 11v11 match. But I did enjoy it.
Yeah. Are you a turf or a grass guy?
Definitely grass, but also all of my career, like the high school field was turf, Oakwood was turf, Providence was turf, and now here in Pittsburgh's turf. But I do like a grass surface when we play on them.
I feel like turf is so like
of all the footy purists I know, they like would refuse to play on turf. I think it's because it's like a health thing. It's not good for your knees. If you score a nice goal and you want a knee slide into the corner, it's gonna take some skin off. Grass doesn't have that. I get that, but yeah, it is interesting to see the levels of which their teams are, and they still choose to play on turf, which I know is sort of a
It's probably just
either or.
There's also
it has to be like impeccable grass.
Yeah.
I feel like you want to be playing on that like perfect length. Ball still got to skip off the surf. It doesn't slow it down. I don't know.
It's also
hard to do.
It's
get that
rare in the
grass.
U.S. to get like such perfectly cut grass because it's not as, I guess, not as much effort is put into that style as you see in like Europe and like Spain, England.
We in the Northeast aren't blessed with gorgeous grass weather, so we get like 2 months out of the year. And like being a Connecticut person, there's like 2 months of good grass you'd get maybe, and that's if you had a good spring. Right. So, not a leisure that we have here on this side of the world, but it is interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm looking at the standings now, Danny, and it looks like your team are in pretty good position right now. I got 4th place in the Eastern Conference. You guys are 10-4-6. Looks like you guys have had a pretty good season so far. Curiously, what does the life look like of a USL player right now? I think that's something that we were all really, really curious about is now that you're at that level and you're sort of at more of a consistent schedule, I would think, each week, what does your life look like right now? What do you do in your free time? What sort of demanding schedule does the USL have in place for you guys? And what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, so like my life here in Pittsburgh, I know we usually train at 11, we usually train at 10, and that means like I'll go in an hour beforehand. You do all your pre-work stuff. And then
your dad's still there making sure he's timing you on sprints, even though you're about to.
Takes the trip a lot, but no, he's not here to time me right now. But I do work out with one of my teammates, so we'll go in early, get all our treatments, do extra work if you need, and then we usually get out on the field around 9:45. Like the guys on the team, we like to get our rondos in for 15 minutes before we start practice, and then we start practice usually an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the day. And after that, usually would get treatment for the next probably hour at the stadium, and then shower up there and head back to the apartments. And then depending on the day, like I'll either lift right after at the stadium, or I'll come back, have lunch, and we have a gym here at the apartments. So I'll lift here at the apartments, and then the day would just probably consist of, obviously I like to get out of the house and do things around the city. Like I enjoy Pittsburgh, and just seeing around, good food here, nice hikes. But yeah, just a lot of, like with our free time, just probably just watching film, watching soccer. A couple guys like to go to the movie theaters here. So, but yeah, that's usually what our schedule looks like. We're more free in the afternoon after we train and get our work done in the morning.
And you say, so sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just saying, does everyone like live in the same pretty much apartment building, like area? Like you do pretty much, I don't want to say everything together, but you see them pretty much all the time.
Yeah. Like I know this year, everyone except for 2 guys that have families, they live elsewhere. They have a house, their own place. But the rest of the guys live here in the apartments.
That's kind of sick.
If I was going to be in Pittsburgh and I only had 24 hours, what's one food place you'd recommend, and what's one non-food activity you'd say that I have to do or I have to experience Pittsburgh properly?
So for the food place, it'd be like I'm big on like Hispanic food. So there's Cilantro and Ajo. It's a Venezuelan spot, like right next to our stadium, like down on Carson Street, and that's a really nice place for like a bowl of chicken, rice, steak, shrimp, whatever you want. And then one thing you'd have to do is probably, obviously the view on Mount Washington, like the overlook of the city is nice. But like I also would recommend probably there's one of our members of the Steel Army, our fan group. He does Segway tours, so he would take us on a Segway tour around the city, and like that's a fun experience.
I wrote down Steel Army immediately. One, because I want to do the Segway tour, but two, that's very interesting. So what has it been like playing for a club that has its own fan base? Have you gotten to meet any of the Steel Army? Does this guy in particular, it sounds like you guys have sort of a close relationship with him if he's giving you tours of the city, but has it been pretty cool getting to meet some of the locals?
Yes, it has. Like, we meet pretty much all the Steel Army. You know, they're there every game showing support. And you know, one cool thing that we do after the games is that we let all the fans come out onto the field. So obviously after the games, we go and thank the Steel Army and shake hands with them after the game. Then also like all the kids, the fans, they come onto the field after the game and get to be on the field, take pictures with us. We sign autographs, and you know, you get that experience to interact with the fans because you know they come out and show the support. So it means a lot to us, and it means a lot to them that we're able to do that.
It would be interesting if we had a fan group that we got to have running. I don't know that I'd want to meet those people, but it would be pretty cool. That is awesome, though. I mean, that's something where, and I mean, you're 24, correct? So yeah, even at a young age, it's nice to one, get that experience, but two, have like a little kid running up to you after the game who's like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. I mean, I know at a young age, that was a big thing for me. It was like meeting a pro athlete of any level was the coolest thing I could possibly have done. And that even then, that hasn't really changed. Like, this is pretty cool doing this right now. So I have to think it's really cool, maybe giving back, but also just getting to meet some of the youth of the area. Youth soccer players, I'm sure, go to the games a lot. So have you gotten to meet like a lot of the youth players as well?
Yes, we see a lot of the youth players. And then obviously we have an academy of our own, so those players are always there. So asking about how their season is going, and kids asking for advice, and like what's one thing you give them for advice. And it's a nice experience to be able to give back and see the smiles on their faces. And obviously they love to come on the field and celebrate a win.
That's awesome. When it comes to throughout your career, what are some of the adjustments you've had to make, I guess, going to each level of play? When it comes to academy now, Division I soccer, obviously Providence College, and then moving into professional level, what's like a personal adjustment you've had to make, and then like a professional football adjustment you've made throughout the entire process?
Yeah, I think obviously in academy, you know, you have a lot of good players. Maybe the tactics, like the tactical part of the game, you don't work on as much in academy as you work on more like your skills, your fundamentals, like working with the team. And then you see like the jump from academy to college, you know, I think guys are a lot bigger, stronger, athletic. So, you know, you have that side of like the weightlifting and stuff is big in college. But then when you make that jump from college to professional, the thinking part of the game and the tactics and all that, like the IQ and everything is a lot higher because the game moves a lot faster than it did in college. Like college, you know, you still worked on tactics, you did film, you knew other you were able to scout other teams. Whereas like in the professional, like, yeah, you're able to scout other teams, but then there's also like how you're going to play. And I think just the awareness and like the level of play is a lot quicker at the professional level than it was in college. And then obviously in college, it was a lot higher than it was in academy. So just going through that, and then obviously seeing the players in your position and, doing the best you can on that approach, and then always looking for ways to better yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess when you jump into the professional level, coming from obviously educational and obviously education first at Providence College, but also soccer second, or I guess, yeah, I would say, would you say Division I more so?
Depends on your reason.
Yeah, exactly. But when it comes to going from being a student and a player to now full-time player, what is like, I guess, the biggest adjustment to you as a person?
Well, probably now, just because obviously you have all that free time, like where you're not having to focus on doing your schoolwork or, you know, other outside activities. I think the biggest thing is just focusing your time on like getting better. Like I said, like you have the whole afternoon. You cannot watch movies, but like what is it going to do for you not if you're not focusing on your game and trying to get better. So obviously doing different things at the gym, doing regen at home, whether I'm foaming while watching a movie or doing different things. It's just, I do watch a lot of film. I do watch a lot of soccer games, whether it's Premier League or other games in the USL or MLS. So it's just always looking at different ways to get better. For me in my position, like I like to watch De Bruyne a lot. I like to watch Marco Verratti. So like seeing what they're doing on the weekends in their games. And then, I watch a lot of highlights of them. And then, just making the most of my free time.
Definitely. That's good to hear. I mean, definitely get to, I guess, use that free time. I feel like whenever I'm on Instagram, I'll see a lot of the players are on like Twitch playing video games and playing FIFA. Yeah. Are you a big FIFA guy at all? Do you ever like set time aside, play some FIFA or any video games while you're, I guess, enjoying the free time, or mostly just, football's first always?
Football is always first. I mean, when I was younger, I did like FIFA. Like if I'm to play any game, it's going to be FIFA, and it'd be like but my PlayStation, like I brought it my first year, but last year I brought it and I didn't even take it out of the box. And this year I didn't even, it's back home in Connecticut. So I don't really play video games at all anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I would play,
kind of adulthood. You're officially old and boring, Danny. Your days of being interesting are over. You mentioned too, having a really good relationship with your current coach. And I'm pretty curious to hear what your thoughts are on that. I mean, you mentioned he's one of the best coaches you've ever had. What makes that so? Is it did it make it easier getting here? Was it easier for you to jump into the program and really buy into what he's preaching?
Yeah, I mean, he gets the best out of all his players. Him and our coaching staff keeps a high standard for the club and the training environment that we create. So I think just for any player, like, you could be doing well, like he's still finding different ways for you to improve and sees things in the game that like you might not see at the time. But then when you go back and rewatch the film, like he tells you exactly what you could be doing in that situation. So I think just that and getting the most out of his players and keeping a high standard that like I always feel like I'm getting better. And I always feel year after year he finds a new challenge for guys on the team and how they can get better. Obviously, this being my third season in Pittsburgh, there's a lot of ways in which I've improved and still a lot more ways in which I can improve.
And is it more, would you say trainings are more classical in that the head coach will sort of observe what's going on while the assistants run the actual drills or trainings? Is it sort of that setup, or do you find that you still get a lot of face time with the head coach?
Oh no, it's definitely a lot of face time with coach. Yeah. He's always on the field, coaching, making points. So like when we're playing, like he'll tell us exactly what he wants and like we'll stop and we'll talk about things and different situations that happen. But it's definitely very, very hands-on from both our coaches.
I feel like I prefer that type of coach.
Yeah.
The silent observer on the side can kind of freak you out sometimes if he's not saying a word.
Overthinking away.
Literally always think you're doing something incorrect when that.
You miss one touch and you just like looking over your shoulder. He's just not saying a word.
I'm gonna get sold.
Saw that.
It's my last day on this team.
So you mentioned like watching film all the time and just like always observing your play. What do you think consists of you playing a complete game at your current position? You play like center, attacking mid, 10, 8 around there, like in the center of the midfield?
I play, so like this year I've played more the 6 and the 8, but some games like I will play the 10. Usually I'm one of the central defensive mids.
Yeah.
But there's also been games where we like one thing that we're really good at, our team is very good at, is that we have a lot of players that you can put in different positions and they know what their roles are, what their job is. Like some guys will play right wing back, will play right back, and we also don't just play one formation. Like depending on the game, we'll go over our tactics and we'll play with a 4-back or a 5-back. Or different games, these midfielders will have different roles depending on how we play in the midfield. So one thing about our team is like where you're playing, like you'll know exactly what your job is and your role. So for me, I played more the 6 and the 8, but then there's also a game where, depending on the team we're playing, like coach will put me in as the 10 and the tactics will be a little bit different then. So just knowing your role. But I mean, in terms of like a complete game, it's just obviously I love being on the ball and dictating play and the speed and the tempo. So just obviously keeping the ball and the transition from obviously winning the ball back in transition and defending well and obviously not conceding any goals, but then also what I can do for the offense and connecting the defense to the front line and creating goals and ultimately creating good chances to win the game.
That's dope.
Yeah, it's very you mentioned Verratti, and that's very like Verratti-esque of dictating play and controlling the tempo of the game. So definitely can see how that relates.
Danny, so you talk about creating play, and what is your favorite facet of the game? Like, is it simply scoring a goal? Is it providing an assist? Or is it, even if it's more detailed from a perspective of like, you like splitting the lines, or like you like that perfectly weighted ball, or even if there's a highlight of yours in particular that like really stands out in your mind, what's your favorite piece of the game, I guess?
Probably like playing the perfect pass, like with the proper weight. Obviously what your pass does can dictate what the next player is going to do. If you're playing them in front, where you want them to go and attack, you're playing the feet. So like there's a lot of plays I'll play in behind where maybe I don't get the assist, but like it's the ball that then puts them in a perfect position to cross the ball and we get a goal. And we have a lot of good team goals where we get in behind the back and it's just that little clipped ball over the back where the weak side defender is not paying attention to it, and our winger gets in and serves the ball across. But that's probably like what I think of as like the perfect goal.
Is there one that stands out that you've been involved in, or a key moment in your career that's just like, that was like, wow, what just happened? Someone came on the field and like just orchestrated this perfectly and you were involved?
Yeah, probably for the one that I was involved in would be my first year against Philadelphia Union 2. And like I remember, like even my coach after the game was like, "Oh, that's one of the best passes he's seen in the stadium." We won the ball over in transition, and I kind of just laced the ball where the defender was like tracking our other midfielder making a run out wide. And the way I played the ball, like in between him, he kind of had to like try and turn to reach the ball. And obviously where I put it, like he couldn't get to it. And then our player chipped in across for like our forward attacking, headed in and scored a goal that way.
Obviously, that had to be a huge confidence booster for you, but was that a moment where, and I don't know, you seem like a confident lad. Was there a moment where you're thinking, you know what, I can keep up with these guys. I have made a huge jump in skill level, but I'm right where I belong. I can keep up with any of these guys. Did you find that was a huge confidence booster for you, or are you still starstruck at times, I guess, is what I'm asking?
For sure, like that. I mean, my first year coming in, like I felt like obviously that's where I belonged and I wanted to show. And like that was obviously a big part of me coming to Pittsburgh too, is I wanted to be around it. Like obviously I knew the team was good. I want to be in a good environment that I'd be pushed and I'd be challenged to get on the field. And the team that we have this year is the deepest team we've had in the 3 years. And I think that for me, it's been the best spot that I could be in to continue to grow as a player.
And two, it seems like you're in a unique position where now you have a couple of years under your belt, so where you're still young, but you'll still be in a position where you can be kind of a mentor to probably newer players that come to Pittsburgh. Each year you probably have a few younger kids, I would imagine, who show up, and it's their first year breaking into the league. So did you find that it was nice to be able to sort of give wisdom to somebody? You can let them know, hey, I've been here before, in case you're feeling this. That's totally normal. Did you run into a lot of those situations?
Oh, for sure. Like after my first year, even like the second year this year, we have guys coming in from college, guys that, need to get used to our system and the way we defend and press. So definitely, like you said, like had those moments where you give those guys your advice because you were in their shoes when I first came into the league. So yeah, most definitely.
Do you think we had our previous guest last time, and we kind of talked about how the path to pro? Do you think that the U.S. is set up in a way, personally to you, that the progression's there? Or do you think there's more work to be done that you've seen maybe throughout college and throughout academy and now at the professional level?
I think obviously there's more work to be done, but I think it has gotten a lot better. Like you see all the Americans that are going overseas now at a very young age, or the young kids that are getting minutes in MLS that are now being sold for all that money to go play in Europe and continue developing. And then our national team is probably the youngest it's been and has been successful recently. So I think it's definitely getting better, but there's always room for it to grow. Like even for me, I felt like we did have a lot of youth scouts where like I was always being scouted by the national team when I was younger in my academy games or like college and then the next path. And there were obviously MLS scouts because my academy played against MLS teams. So I knew there are MLS teams that showed interest when I was in high school, like for me to go and play with their academy for a year or two and then see what would come from it. But I think now more than it was in the past, it has grown a lot.
And did you ever take those offers seriously to go to those MLS academies, or were you solely stuck on Oakwood as my home and Oakwood's where I want to be?
I remember my senior, like the summer going into my senior year, the Revs, the New England Revolution wanted me to do that in my academy, and I did think it over just because I know they were mentioning the possibilities of a homegrown stuff, and I know it was a talk with my academy coaches, their academy coaches, even my college coaches at the time. But ultimately, I did choose like Oakwood was my home. You know, they always took care of me. Like they completely developed my skills when I was younger and always pushed me and always put me in situations. Like they brought me to Argentina to be evaluated by Newell's Old Boys and in different teams down there. So Oakwood always gave me that advantage and always, you know, took care of me. So my senior year, I wanted to stay in Oakwood, and we always had a big rivalry with the New England Revolution Academy. And at that age, I always played a year up, and then finally my senior year was the first year I played my age. And we always finished ahead of them in the standings. So it was just like, I wanted to be with Oakwood because Oakwood was my home and, you know, they helped develop me.
That's awesome. And was there ever an opportunity, guys, I guess during Providence years where you would have left college early to go play professional elsewhere? Or is that something that you wanted to finish out school and move on to the MLS or the USL that you are now?
Yeah, I think in college, like I know every summer I did end up every summer I trained with New England Revolution's first team. I know every summer there was actually a different coach. So like my first year it was Jay Heaps. My second year I was with them pretty much the whole summer, and their head coach Brad Friedel was my coach with the U19 national team. So I was very familiar with him. And then my third year was when they brought in Bruce Arena. So I had like 3 different coaches at the time, and it was always good to train with them in the summers to get prepared for my college season. Obviously the thought was in my mind, like to go pro as early as possible, but also glad that I was able to finish my degree and then still be able to play afterwards and move on to the next level.
I guess since you've obviously trained with the Revolution, who's like a defender or a player that you matched up against that you're like, oh my gosh, this guy is just unstoppable, or like this defender is unbeatable, like top of mind?
I really like for the Revs, I think there's probably Andrew Farrell was a good guy, like a good guy to play with. You know, he was always close and would talk with all the new guys, the young guys that came in to train. So I think for him, like he was just a good leader on the team, and you could see like his training habits and mentality was always good. So like he was a good defender that I can think of.
Yeah, I can't imagine that the level, I guess, from D1 to now.
That's heavy.
Well,
Yeah.
he pretty casually dropped that he had a training in front of Newell's Old Boys, which obviously is an Argentine club. What was that like? I mean, holy shit, we kind of missed the boat on that. I started Googling frantically when you brought that up, but what was it like being in that setting? Was it more intense? Did you feel like there was more pressure, or was it more so just nice to get a different pair of eyes on you and get some good criticism?
It was definitely very intense because I think when I went down there, the age group was a year older. So like when I went at the time, I was 16. So I think they were like 17, 18, the group I trained with. But yeah, it was just a cool experience because obviously like when we do that trip, like when I was younger, we would always host, or like the families from Argentina, like Rosario Jockey Club was like we were like partnered with them. So whenever they came to Oakwood, they'd play, they'd travel, they'd go to like Washington, different places, but then we'd play a game against them, and two of the kids on their team would stay with me at my house, and like we would host them. So like when we go there, like one of the Rosario Club families would host us. So like I was older at the time, but I went to play in some games with probably the kids 2 years younger than me. But then the point was for me to be able to be evaluated by those old boys and like get that training experience in. And it was different like when I first stepped into practice, because obviously I was from another country, so like maybe at first they didn't want to pass the ball to me, but I think like the level and like when I got into it, it was very good, and it was good to get feedback from them, you know, because it's a different part of the world, it's a different style of play than what I would like than from playing in academy here. And also it was cool after like Gabriel Heinze was there watching. And then he ended up, I know, was coaching in Atlanta most recently. But yeah, it was just overall, ultimately, like, it was a cool experience for me to be able to do that.
It sounds a lot more constructive than some of the feedback we get from our international fans. A lot of times it's telling us we don't know what we're talking about and we should end our podcast, but it sounds like your feedback was a lot more constructive. But yeah, I mean, I imagine the setting was completely different. I feel like it was probably a bit more intense in some ways too, but when you're kind of thrown out there in the thick of it, I mean, what was going there? You've probably been in that position a lot of times where you're just playing with a new group of guys who are pretty high level, but is there something you tell yourself before the first ball gets kicked, or when you just kind of take a step back and realize where you are? Is there something that you find comfort in, or that you can say to yourself to like help you get through the tough times?
It's just like, obviously when you go in, because I've been in a lot of situations like that, like you said, like just I'd go into market trainings, like even with the like going into trainings, and I was in the select game, so I was playing with a whole new group of players for like who was going to get called in for residency with the national team. So you always go into different environments like that, and it's just always about, you know, you go into a lot of places where you're showcasing yourself. So just thinking about just being confident and enjoying it ultimately, you know, enjoy being on the ball and enjoy that you're in that position. And ultimately, I enjoy the game more than anything. You know, it's my passion to play soccer. So just when I get in those situations, just about being confident and getting on the ball as much as I can.
When you think about where you want to be in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, do you see yourself making more progressions? Like, I guess, what's the farthest you'd like to go? Do you have a personal goal that you feel comfortable sharing, obviously, that you see for yourself, or you've set for yourself early on to think like, I'll be satisfied when I've gotten here, or I'll really feel like I can be proud of myself when I've gotten here? You'd have full reign to say that right now with how far you've already gotten and all the things you've already done, but you personally, do you feel like there's a lot further you can go?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot further I can go. You know, my goal is always just to play at the highest level I can. You know, whether that's MLS, whether that's overseas, it's just playing at the best club I can, and ultimately winning a championship. You know, like my goal right now for this season is to win a championship here in Pittsburgh. You know, and then whatever the future holds, it's just playing at the highest level I can, and I'm always going to enjoy the game and always going to push myself to go further. So, yeah.
Things at Manchester United are not going great right now. They could use a midfielder. Now would be the time.
Especially
now would be the time to try and break into that team. Just a thought.
Wait, who do you support in the Prem before we?
if it's a Prem team.
If it's a Prem team, yeah.
Man City.
Oh, wow. We got a City fan.
So would you consider yourself like a diehard Prem fan, or do you like specify with like the Italian league or the Spanish league, or is that just your team in England?
That's just my team in England, I would say. Like I started watching Man City a lot in college just because I love, like, when Pep was became the coach there. Like, I just loved their style of play and, you know, the players that they had, and so that's the team, like, since college that I've been rooting for in the Prem. Obviously, growing up, Ronaldinho made everyone fall in love with the game. So like Barcelona was always my favorite team growing up, and then I always root for Barcelona. But like when Neymar was my favorite, or is my favorite player, or was my favorite player. But obviously now I focus more on the midfielders. But when Neymar went to PSG, like that was the team like I support in Champions League. So like if City played PSG, like I obviously support PSG. But like if PSG is out, then obviously I want Man City and Barca to do well.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one team that could afford a Neymar move right now, it would be City. And I even saw rumblings of that, like, oh, could they be the team that could finally push this through? But yeah, I mean, you mentioned De Bruyne earlier, you mentioned Verratti earlier, and those are great midfielders to watch. Like, would you put anybody else on that list of, like, if you had a son and you were like, I need you to watch the midfield played the right way, who would you have them watch right now besides those two? Is there anybody else that comes to mind, or is De Bruyne your boy, which I'd get?
I mean, I'd say, obviously, if you're watching old clips, like obviously Iniesta and Xavi is like the two best midfielders for them to watch. But yeah, playing right now would probably be Verratti, Modric, and De Bruyne would be those top three for me.
Modric, and Jalen's a big Madrid fan, so he's obviously a big Modric guy, but that's like the ageless player. Like, I don't even know if I could think of a more ageless player playing in the game right now that's still getting it done regularly.
Yeah, he's putting in the shift
especially in the midfield. It's not as easy as sitting up top being an attacker.
Right. Scoring all those tap-ins. So I guess a few questions about USL too, since I am still curious, and this is just more for my curiosity. Like, I'm looking at some of the teams that are in the top of the table. Louisville City looks like they're having a good season this year. So, like, Are you anticipating that once again next season Louisville will once again be good? Like, is the longevity of the level of these teams pretty consistent, or would you say it's pretty spread out? Do some teams have an up year, some have a down year, or would you say it's pretty consistent?
I think so. Every year you see like a lot of roster change in the USL. You know, contracts are usually like a year plus an option depending on the player. So there is a lot of roster movement during the off season. But then there are certain clubs that you would say that are usually finishing the top, like us, a Louisville, a Tampa. You know, there are teams that year after year will be in those playoff positions.
What team do you hate the most?
What
team do you hate the most?
Um,
I don't want to say hate. Which one, if you were to lose, you were just like seething, like you just want to punch a wall?
Probably our rival would probably be Louisville. You know, that's a team that, you know, we faced that was my debut actually, was against Louisville when they opened up their new stadium, and then that was the first team we played in the playoffs my first year, so it would probably be them.
So obviously every single level you've been at, there's been more increase in fans. When going to the professional level, did you feel that stress factor of fans and I guess more noise within the game, or are you good at just kind of blocking the noise and focusing on what's at task, which is to play your best and help the team win?
Yeah, I would say I'm good at like, obviously I'm good at blocking it out. Like, you don't, like, whether it's 5,000, whether it's 20,000, you know, I'm good at blocking it out and just focusing on the game. But also, like, I would say, like, in the games, you do feel it more, like, you know, you feel the momentum from the fans too. Like when you guys are playing well and the fans are getting up and making noise for you, you know, you do feel that moment and get that second air and, you know, continue to push, like whether it's tied late in a game and you hear your home fans, like you do get that extra surge to go and find a late winner to go and win the game. So especially for us at home, I feel like we definitely feel it from the fans.
Is there any chants for the players specifically, or is it mostly just kind of a team chant, like from the fans, or is it like, is there anything specific to you as a player? Like,
is there a Danny chant?
Is there a Danny chant?
I would learn that in 5 seconds.
That'd be great.
I like obviously you hear them chanting different guys' names during the game. I wouldn't say like one specific chant, but our fan base is good. You know, they're funny. You know, you can hear them like obviously when you're watching the film and stuff, but they always give the goalie down at that end a hard time. Our goalie's over there, so they do a good job of getting the players riled up and you know, rooting us on and helping support us to get that win.
All you can ask for.
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna submit a Danny song to
Yeah,
Steel Army.
Yeah.
It's gonna go crazy.
I was kind of hoping there'd be kind of a pseudo embarrassing Danny song you could make him sing. But I believe you. I believe there's not a specific Danny chant, but we're gonna write one and we're gonna submit it, and you're gonna hear us sing it at one of these matches this season. I can guarantee you that. So you're kind of in the thick of it. I mean, looks like there's a bunch more games left this season. I know it's sort of slow and steady is typically how most athletes would put it, but is there like a tough period, a tough stretch? Do you find the schedule is pretty spread out, or is it like a pretty significant demand on your body, like right from the get-go?
I think the way our schedule is, it's pretty spread out. So like usually it's just a game once a week every Saturday. I know not too long ago we had a Friday game, Wednesday, Saturday. So you played like 3 games in almost a week pretty much, or 8 days. You won't have many weeks like that. Last year, because the season was condensed, we actually had a lot of like midweek games where I remember one month we played 8 games in a month. I remember one stretch last year. But this year our schedule is pretty spread out where it's once a week. There's not too many midweek games like that where you're playing 2 or 3 games in a week.
I see Hartford on the away schedule, and this is no knock to Hartford. You're a Connecticut guy yourself. Are there away matches you really look forward to going to based on where they are geographically? I see like a New Mexico. You guys are at New Mexico next weekend. That's going to be nice. Get to maybe a little bit of sun. Like, are there any away games you look forward to, especially regardless of the team? Like, just because you know you're about to be in some nice weather for a few days?
I would say, well, we were actually just in New Mexico Saturday. But our next away game is in Hartford, so that's a game I look forward to because obviously me being from Hartford, like my family, the house I grew up in is probably 12, 15 minutes from the stadium. So the night before the game and the night after the game, I'll actually stay with my parents and my sister. So I'll get to see all my family, my cousins, and then all my friends from home will be at the game too. So we'll have a big section there at the Hartford game. So that's definitely one of the games I look forward to.
Yeah, that away goalie's in for a long day at that Hartford game, man. I do not envy him.
Connor was just at a Hartford game not too long ago.
I just watched them play Louisville. Yeah, they took the win. Hartford put in a decent shift for like 60 minutes, but then, I mean, it was hot. I don't know, playing on turf, and it was probably 95, sun beating down, so I think they just ran out of gas. But your team, you said it, you have depth, so you should be all set.
We're ready, we head out Friday, so looking forward to that game and that matchup, and bringing home the 3 points back to Pittsburgh.
Awesome. Love to hear that.
We're trying to logistically find a way to where we can schedule with another one of our hopeful guests and maybe 2 birds with 1 stone, see you both play a little bit further down the road. But might be prematurely announcing that. But it was something logistic we were looking forward to. So
yeah, that'd be a cool experience. Watch this
sometime in September.
Sometime, yeah.
Oh, it's plenty of time to write the song.
Yeah, we got a lot of time.
We'll come up with the song.
We got to order the megaphones so we can actually hear us.
Yeah, and then practice it. So, Danny, if we want to stream any of your games, can we stream through the Riverhounds website? Is that pretty easy to do? I'm a big fan now. I want to be part of the Steel Army, and if I'm going to do this correctly, I need to know the streaming schedule. So is it through the website that we can watch you guys play?
I know, obviously my family and everything watches the game through, all my friends and family watch it through ESPN Plus.
Oh.
There is 22 The Point in Pittsburgh that you can stream it on. But yeah, those are the 2 ways. Obviously our Steel Army goes. There's a place, Mike's Beer Bar, that some of the Steel Army fans will go watch our away games at, here in Pittsburgh. And then obviously those are the two ways you can stream it from home.
Mike's Beer Bar sounds like a place we should stop in.
Yeah, we are a half craft beer podcast at times. So, right. Danny, thank you so much for coming on. It was really good to get some insight into obviously a USL player and your experiences in the game, and hopefully this brings some advice to some of the youngsters listening and their path to a professional level.
Yeah. Kick some ass this season, man. I'm looking forward to watching you play. You guys got to keep going strong. We're going to get past Louisville. I'm not even afraid of them, honestly. We'll get past Louisville.
That sounds good. I appreciate you guys having me. It was a blast. Thank you guys.
Of course, man.
Take care.
Best of luck. And thank you so much for listening to the Howlers Podcast here. Be sure to follow us on TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Like and subscribe. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye now.